Hey everyone, welcome to this video. I'm very happy today because I literally just got a message that my channel got monetized. Thanks to you all and thanks to me for showing up every day, making a lot of tutorials. I made about 100 videos in past 12 months and I'm super proud of that. So what I want to do this year, I want to start taking this to another level, collaborate with more artists, start networking more and more, creating a little bit different than just a tutorial channel. I will keep making tutorials as always. I will do Cinema 4D and Redshift. I'm also learning Unreal and leverage the power of Unreal in my renders. I want to come up with a new video that will be talking about why you should become 3D designer in 2023, inspire all the people that just thinking about changing their journey or improving their tool set. They just want to do the leap, but they are scared to do it. So I want to do a complete video of how I did it, what you need to think about when you want to jump into 3D. That will be an exciting video. Of course, we're gonna come up with a lot of tutorials. Today we're wrapping up the organic growth part 2. So I'm going to be explaining a couple of things I promised last time. Thank you very much for supporting my channel, and remember, always be rendering. I put myself a reminder there that I should render more, so every time you go away you make sure you render some 4K glass. Yeah. Hey, welcome. As I promised, today we're gonna go over animation. We also gonna look how to transfer the grass setup. So in the previous video, I was explaining how to build this grass setup. We can look at that by turning on the IPR. So I've changed the colors a little bit and now it's a more of a tropical setup, which I love, by the way. I will transfer this setup today and I'm gonna show you what to look out for when you building your setups and then you transferring them somewhere else and they look absolutely different, because this is to be expected. Whenever you work on some advanced setup where you're developing some sort of look, when you transfer it somewhere else, it's always gonna create some misalignment in terms of lighting, your camera setting, and also the mesh you scattering the grass onto. So that plays big part on how the grass will look. I'm just briefly gonna introduce the setup that we did last time. If you didn't watch the video about how to build these setups, then I recommend to watch it. I'm going to turn off the IPR for now, and we're going to look at how all these matrices basically are being introduced, from the very little ones and the big ones. So the more we get into the center of that spherical field, then we see it's getting larger and larger. So if I would push it here, turn on the IPR, then we would see that we only introducing very little, and then as we grow we see that a little grass is popping up on the edges, and this is effect that seems to be more organic than what I've introduced last time, where the grass is just popping up out of nowhere and doesn't feel really that organic. I mean, this is still far from the real kind of time-lapse organic growth, but it's getting there, and there's things that can be introduced. One of those things that we didn't go over last time, it's rotate. So rotate will rotate the matrices, which means basically rotate the grass in a way randomly in about 400 degrees random. You know, so if I would 360, it's actually we will randomly, because we use the random effector, randomly rotate the grass 360 in a horizontal rotation. That will allow some randomization across, so even if it's the same grass model, it can be rotated differently and you might see different part of it, and that will add to the realism of each plant in nature. Will be unique in its way, even though they all look the same, they all kind of unique, and so you want to add to that. And the next thing we see, there is a plane effector that is affecting through the field, so we use that field with invert. So that's why when the spherical field is in play, it's being cropped off by this remapping function, where we see that I can control how, you know, the strength of that application of the how this will impact the growth. We can see like now we don't have such a large, so if I would increase this, we would get that top really like large grass, and then we would get those smaller ones on the edges, and you can increase that contrast in between those as much as you want. But then obviously you reach the certain level of unusable. I mean, this is still cool looking. I really like the combo of that orange and the luminescent blue. So, and then there's some occasional purple flowers. So that's really cool combo. I should name this grass setup 1. And we have this grass setup, and if you think about it, all we see here is basically grass type 1, grass type 2, grass type 3, and then we have that remesh. So this would be the luminescent swivel, I would say. So I should have named this before. And then we have the tree. So this is this bit, and we have a matrix that is scattering onto the tree. We're using the polygonal selection, which is here in the polygonal tag. So the polygonal tag is controlled by the spherical field. So everything is linked to this one spherical field, which has this remapping function. So everything is being controlled from here. What I want to do first, I want to grab all these things that we want to keep and take them to another scene. So last time in the previous video, you saw the scene where we have a nice kind of white room with the sunlight and having just some grass cut on the wall. And I want to take this setup, and you see I'm using this tree as a parent to all these things, because I want to make sure the order of the elements in the object manager is being in the correct way, because I was explaining that there is issue if you switch some of these elements. For example, if you do the matrix first before the tree, then you wouldn't see in your renders any grass, because that will cause issue, because you will first use the scatter, but then Cinema calculates from top to bottom. I was talking about this in the previous video, so let's not talk about this now. So let's take the tree with all the stuff. Let's take the grass. So I'm holding control and highlighting all the things I want to keep. And then luminescence swirl. Lighting, I don't really want for now, maybe later. We grab all this, I'll press Alt-G, put it in a group and call it grass setup. Now this I can Control-C, and I can go to this new scene, maybe introduce the backdrop. That would be cool. I can do some width, I can do some height, I can do some depth. I can import, and it was the following texture are not current project following. Do you want to change the path information to absolute path? Yes, let's do. Now it's gonna be absolute path, so I can because I didn't even save the project yet, but it will be able to reach out to those. And I keep all my textures on same places all the time, so absolute path is fine with me. So what we're gonna do now is look at that and analyze how this is going to be different, because we see those grasses here, like we have the twiddle and then we have the grass setups here. So this is absolutely fine. We can see them in the render, but I can take those grass setups and move them further away, just so they not even in our scene. And then I look at this setup, maybe can rotate it, so I can just take the tree, rotate the tree. All of these are childs of that tree. Even my spherical field will rotate with it. I can just kind of rotate the object and everything goes with it. So that's absolutely cool. And now we kind of want to match that lighting, because as you can see, it looks absolutely different. And that's because the lighting is different, the dome light has different settings. So I use Creative Office from Grayscale Gorilla as my default light, as snappy, but you can rotate it on horizontal, kind of try to find that look from the left side. So we're already getting somewhere, but you see the opacity, the luminescence on the swivel is different, and that is to do with the camera and it's the exposure. So if I would drag the exposure down, you would suddenly see that blue tint because of the exposure. It's high. You don't see that blues until we take that exposure down. So in the previous video, you could see that, and I had actually exposure like -2, and I had this kind of a bit of a darker scene. And the only thing I did, I've introduced the area light. So if I would go with area light and just put it like a left side, and then I would make it more less spread. I would just kind of make it more directional, and then maybe lower the exposure too, just so I can control it a bit better. Take that spherical field and just apply it to the whole thing and zoom in on it a little bit. Make this area light smaller, so I'm gonna just press T for scale and just drag anywhere in my scene, and it should make it a bit smaller. Maybe I can make it visible. Yeah, so if you drag anywhere with, you can make your light smaller in place. Then we look at this targeting. It's not really good. I have all my tags here, so I just press target tag and drag that tree into that target tag. So I need to click that target tag and drag that tree over there. And now my light is pointing directly at that tree, which is not really ideal because it's pointing a little bit down. If we look at it, then it might be interesting. It's like a little bit from a back, so it's kind of a like headlight. Like we want to animate this just so it's looking smooth. I think what's the hardest bit about it, just to make it look as natural as possible. I think this setup translates quite well, and it's because that we know that the camera settings was a little bit underexposed, and then we blast the ARIA light into it, so we create that sharpness contrast by our lighting, and that's why we kind of able to match that. And if there was no backdrop at all, then we would see that it's quite similar to what we had last time. And this is how quickly you can transfer your setup to any scene. But let's imagine we don't want to use that tree. So let's say I'm going to introduce ground. So this is our plane, and then I'm going to introduce wall. So I'm going to use cube for that, and I'm going to push that cube a little bit further and make it more thinner. I think this is good, and make it larger and give it some segments. So I don't know, like this could be good. I'll give it some, I don't know, 100. So now I have the wall, and I can, because it's cube, I can go press Alt and click on bool. So now bool is going to be cutting into this cube, and I need to just give them object. So I'm going to use tube, and I'm press it straight into this, and I'm going to rotate this tube. You can see that tube is no longer visible, but you can carve, thanks to the boolean, thanks to the bool object, you can carve into here, right? And this will create that kind of a pattern. Now keep in mind, this can get intensive depending on what machine you're running. Let's say I have this, and I'm gonna do the inner radius just a bit larger, rotation segments. I'm gonna introduce more, so we have some sort of this, and now it's depending what kind of material you're gonna use, because the best bit about this is that you can use like a plaster. Let's use plaster. What is this one? Let's drag it onto. These are the Redshift materials that are included with your library. So I highly recommend to use them. They are really high quality. At least to me, it felt like they're out of the box, straight away good looking. Rotate our dome light a little bit, just so I see the wall better. You see there's a nice wall, because I applied it to the whole bool, but if I apply it to the cube, it will be applied to the cube, but as you can see, that boolean part will have its own material. So that's interesting, because then we can have something like a plastic glossy, and I can apply it to that tube, and that tube will apply it to that cutout area, and this way you can create interesting carved out materials. You can also create mesh object out of this. You press C, then you have a cube. So I would remove this. It would be just nothing there. It will be just like that. So now I have two objects, and you can also do it differently. You can go back, Control Z. Now I'm back to the boolean, and I can put it into connect by holding Alt and clicking on connect. So now the connect is the parent of the bool, and I can press C, and I have only one object, and that will have two selection tags, which will do the two materials on one object. But you can see there's some edges. So again, I'm gonna press Control Z, just go back to it and go to that connect and turn off the welding and the tolerance to 0. And now I press C, and now you see we don't have any of those artifacts introduced. So now we have one object, and we have also that selection. If I would say this one is using polygonal selection 1, we can say the blue ring, just so we know straight away when we look at it next time. So blue ring, and I'm gonna change this selection here. So I'm gonna drag this into the blue material, blue ring. Now the connection is back. Now I know straight away this is my selection, and you see we introduced the selection before as well, and that is interesting, because I can now drag that spherical field and drag it into our selection, into polygonal selection, by using fields and deleting that freeze and dragging the spherical field there. And so now if I would just go away from this and drag it over there, use transfer over here. The first part of the setup is there. I have the field and that will be applied to this selection, which we hit, the blue one. This field needs help from the matrix object because we still pointing to that tree, which we no longer want to use. What we need to do, we just need to drag that bool into that matrix. So now I'm going to be telling, hey, you spread onto this, right? And you see now it's the lot of things that is broken, and in that polygonal selection we can use again that blue one. So we have the one that is called blue ring, and I can go back to matrix object and use that blue ring as a only thing to be scattered on. So now I have the spherical field. What we can do, we can actually take this area light, stretch it, move it a little bit further, give it a new target. Okay, we're gonna do it like this. So we're gonna get rid of the tree and get rid of the tags. I just wanted to copy them over, but I don't think it's worth it. So you still have those grass setups, and you have the matrix that is pointing now to the bool. So I can change the name to wall. Now you have like a wall with portal. And if you look at the matrix now, you will not break the connection if you change the name of the object that you scattering onto. So that's good to know. But we see that we have some kind of a changes here in material. So when we use that area, so we see that the mesh is being affected. We don't want that. We have this selection material. I bet if we delete that, that will do something good for us, that will clean up that, can then apply that material again. So we have the material and without any polygonal selection. So now this is applied to the whole wall, and we have that ring as well. So we apply it and we can start making this a little bit larger. So what we need to do, we need to increase the count of the grass to like 60,000 because it's going to be more thick, and then you see that the look is completely different from what we used to. It's again comes down to lighting, angle, and the overall scene we having. We can either increase the dome light or decrease, and then play with the light setup we have there actually. Okay, so we have that. Then we have the setup. So we see a little bit of purple. We see a little bit of a comeback of the initial look, but it's still nothing like we wanted. So I think I would change this material to be something gray. We get that little bit of a different look, but that is much cleaner. That blue was just for demonstration, so we can separate this. And now we want to actually use that spherical field and plane effector to control how this is going to be behaving on that material. And because we are in range of -2, we can go to the parameters actually, and we see that we are -2 on scale, and that is allowing all those other ones to appear. So we have only using, because of the selection, we're only showing the ones that are inside the spherical field, but you can see there's some showing on the other side, and that's because we are scattering on the -2. I don't think it's visible here because it's inside that wall, but then the way to prevent it is actually go just only -1, and you're gonna get only spread them. But then you need to be careful, because when you only scaling onto -1, you need to control your remapping parameter really well, just so you get that nice sequenced scaling. So you go from very tiny to actually big ones. But this will always depend on the setup you having, and on what kind of a scale of your scene is, and what type of shape you are spraying onto. But overall, like, this is something that is definitely achievable if you play a little bit with the plane effector and the spherical field remapping function. So this is how to transfer these setups, and I think like from here you can do anything, and you still have that same grass that you've developed before, and you really like that, and this way you can take it anywhere, and you can create continuity in your scenes and create multiple renders that having same grass. Only thing you need to think about is always the lighting camera setup, just so you can make sure that you know how to match that look, because this graphs can look absolutely different in different scenarios. I can show you some pictures when I've been trying to achieving this. It created some differences. So I think this is the finished video. I'm just gonna show you time lapse of how I finished the scene. So thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.